Let's return now to politics and our regular panel, Eamonn Fitzpatrick and David Gazzard. Great to see you both. Eamonn, first to you, this economic statement, a ministerial statement by the Treasurer. They're hoping to set the foundation stone, really, for the mid-year budget update and possibly the election campaign, which could come around as soon as Australia Day next year.
Well, maybe. Let's see what happens. But I think it absolutely sets it up for the months ahead. It's almost the unofficial start of the campaign. You know, it's interesting to see some of the phrases and like some of the words Chalmers has been using today, but, you know, he's really sort of underlining a bit of realism, I think, and the fact that we are not immune from so many different forces at play right around the world. And and that will be critical to how he manages the next period going forward between now and when he hands down that budget. I've just come back from Peru from that APEC meeting, and you know the experience is very much the same no matter where you are. There are forces at work, Kieran, no matter where you are, and everyone is doing what they can to try and get through it. We obviously have some, you know, undercurrents that we're waiting to see whether, you know, just how hard they're going to hit us in terms of US tariffs on China. And there's a couple of other things going on. But, you know, obviously this is setting it up to go into next year and to go into that campaign.
To then deliver a budget in March and is the other option. They deliver that budget in March and use that as a launch pad into a campaign ahead of May. But David Gazzard, you're convinced that we're going to have an election in March?
Yeah, I don't think we'll be back after next week for Parliament. I think that's it. MAEFO, mid-year economic and fiscal outlook, will form a sort of mini budget, and then we'll be off to the races coming out of February. Why would you want to bring Parliament back if you're the Prime Minister and these numbers are falling across the board? The economic statement today really sort of underscores the concern that many in the coalition and many in the community would have. As Eamonn correctly notices, a lot of these prevailing headwinds have been growing for some time, but this is why you run prudent fiscal and economic and budget and industrial relations policy all the way through, because these headwinds have been there for some time. You don't sign up 36,000 new public servants. You don't make massive spending increases. You don't underpin the economy with an industrial relations and workplace relations system that rewards unions with massive pay increases like the one we're seeing in Sydney at the moment. And you can see why everyday Australians, noticing that these headwinds have been coming for some time, feel like these concerns are not recognised by a government where the Prime Minister's buying a $4.3 million beach home. I mean, this is everything kind of coming together at the wrong time for the government vis-a-vis their election plans, which I think will be sooner rather than later.
Eamonn, what's the mood like within Labor right now, given David just touched on that, the house purchase on the Central Coast? There was some that had urged the Prime Minister not to go ahead with the purchase, is my advice, but that is what I've been told, but he did anyway. And that has caused a real distraction at the very least. They've moved on from that, but given cost of living is so central to everything, what's the mood like?
Well, the mood is there's a lot of work to be done. Having said that, this is a government that can actually stand on a pretty good record, I got to say, for having been around for just over 2 and a bit years. You know, you listen to what Gaz is saying about performance and economic management. You know, I'll tell you what doesn't help. A decade of deficit after deficit after. I mean, that does not help. That does not help. I think what we've seen in this term is a government that got voted in because it wants to do something about the cost of living, and it has. It absolutely has. And all the predictions around the things that they're doing would be inflationary actually has not materialised. You know, you look at the help that's been given out around power prices. So, you know, let's not forget some of that stuff. But we live in an age where nobody takes anything for granted on the campaign trail. In fact, I'd argue these days the campaign never stops. You always got your best foot forward and you have to be on your guard. So there's no complacency, and, you know, Labor is going into a summer where the work doesn't stop and there are challenges ahead. There's no doubt about that. We've heard Jim Chalmers talk about them today. He has had that front and centre the whole way through.
David, when you look at your experience over the years and you've seen governments drop in the polls, and we've been talking about the dip, the trend away. And then when people zero in on the campaign, it comes back to the incumbent. And you've seen that many times, I think every election cycle with John Howard.
The power of incumbency is certainly important, and it can be used, and there's no doubt it will be used. We're seeing the Labor Party already starting to ramp up the negative ads about Peter Dutton, and they'll use the entire weight of government to do that. But that does not cover over the fact that for the last year, 18 months, the numbers for the Labor Party have been sliding and continue to slide in defiance of what Eamonn is saying about, having their nose to the grindstone on cost of living. Cost of living now is concerns 70% of the electorate, and that number has risen. That number is going to rise as we see the flow-through effects from falling minerals prices, falling exports, a declining Chinese economy, possible changes coming in the US vis-a-vis their trade policy, rising energy prices. So none of this matters. None of this spin matters. It's really where the community is at the moment, and you've got the primary vote of the Labor Party falling, the 2PP of the Labor Party crossing with the coalition, and Peter Dutton drawing almost level with Anthony Albanese as preferred Prime Minister.
It's certainly very encouraging for our coalition members. One frontbencher said to me they can see themselves getting to majority before Labor. So let's see how that all unfolds over coming months. David, Eamonn, great to chat.